All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Moji Olaiwola, and this tonight we'll be talking about metrics. And we'll look at um, what metrics are, the meaning, what do we use metrics for, what type of metrics do we have, what are the benefits of metrics. We'll look at some sample metrics also, and then we would see where they are located on your Azure DevOps board, the source, how you can get it. And like I said, if we have time, we'll have just a mini workshop to generate some metrics just to show you how it's done. That's if your mentors have not done that with you already, we'll be able to do that also. Okay. So let's look at what we mean by metrics when we talk about metrics. Okay, so what are metrics? They are just tools that are used to measure and provide insights into the productivity of a software or product development lifecycle. Okay, so they are graphical representation. Some call it visual, graphical, whatever you want to call it, representation, and they display the process and the progress of a team's work over a defined timeline. So you use the information you have on your board is what you use to generate the metrics that you have. And like it said, it just gives a visual representation of how the team's progress is or whatever process that they're using. Process in the sense that, like, if it's Scrum, it has a definite time of 2 weeks. So that whatever chart you have will be able to give information based on just those 2 weeks that you have, or depending on the number of weeks um that you have planned your sprint for. So Scrum is not just restricted to two, 2 weeks. There's some that does 3 weeks. There's some that does 4 weeks. The maximum is 4 weeks or a month. You don't go beyond that. But at least it gives a definite or a defined timeline. It gives you the information. So we will go through and see some of the informations that you can get through your metrics. It tells the Scrum team, it helps to tell the Scrum team how effective the sprint was or how well the team were able to deal with the amount of work that has been allocated. And these are some of the tools that the team can use when they are having their retro meeting, a meeting you have when you reflect on how you've behaved. The metrics helps you to use that. You can use that metrics. It's one thing to say, oh, we did well. It's another thing to actually have a metric before you that gives you that information if you've done well or not, or that gives you information about the area where you need to improve on. That's what you use, your metrics to do. And these are charts that does that for you, that helps you, different charts that helps you to see that. Okay, so why do we need to use metrics? What is the use of metrics? To give, like I said, it visualizes the project, it visualizes a particular sprint, it visualizes the project. A roadmap can be is a metric because it's able to tell you how the journey is over a period of time on the project. You have metrics also for your sprint that helps you also to give you information. So it visualizes, it gives you a visual aid of how the sprint had gone. It measures the amount of work also that has been completed against the time and what is still available to do. So your metrics is not something you see only at the end of your sprint. Even during your sprint, is something, especially Scrum Master, this is something you look at a lot, that gives you a lot of information about how your team members are performing, how you can motivate them, even use the chart itself during stand-up at times, to motivate them to say, oh, this is where we are and things like that. You motivate them to work when they see the amount of work that has been completed with what is remaining, and then looking at the time that is remaining. So it's a metric that you can use to do that as a Scrum Master, or even the teams themselves, if they are matured enough to be able to go on the dashboard and see it themselves. Okay. Also, you use it to measure what you've planned against what has been completed. So this is what we planned. and this is what we've done, and everything helps you to look at how you can reflect on things and improve things going further. It also, you can use it also to forecast for the future. You can use it to forecast to say that, okay, looking at the way we've done, in the past sprints and everything, I think going forward, this is the way we can do, or gives you a guideline of how you can plan the subsequent sprints that you're going to have. Okay, so the team's deliverable, the success of a sprint, the goal, the sprint charts, that is your team deliverable. Those are the deliverables you want to have. That at the end of this sprint, we're able to meet the goals that we've set for ourselves to do. And you can see that through your metrics, which are your charts. You can see those through them also. And then it also helps a team to know how effective they are. Because by the time you look at the way you work in the first sprint, second sprint, you can actually predict that at the rate at which we're going, if that project is targeted for 3 months, you can look at the rate at which you're going and be able to say, oh yes, we can finish this product, to that time, that depending on the effectiveness. So a team is able to know that we'll finish the way we're going, we'll finish this thing in the 3 months that has been, targeted for it, or we might not be able to finish it on time. And then look at what are the reasons that won't make us finish on time. Have discussions with your stakeholders and all that, especially if that reason might be tending towards their own side. Even if it's not tending towards their own side, it's better to be objective. It might be that that project is a very complicated one, and the stakeholder or the project sponsor is thinking, oh, it's going to take 3 months. As developers, as the people on ground, the technical people on ground doing the work, you'll be able to give them, a more realistic approach to say, it is going, is a complicated one. We don't think we're going to be able to do it. So it helps your effectiveness also. It helps the time when that product gets to the market. It helps to look at the return on investment for the stakeholder, and then the capital redeployment. Capital redeployment is a situation where this project sponsor is able to look at things and know also that, okay, so this is my budget for this project and all that. But by the time you're coming with information to tell them, this is a complex thing, being realistic, and then they're able to redeploy their money. They're able to, I don't want to use the word replan their money, but to jiggle things around to know that, okay, the budget I have for this thing, will it be okay? Will it be enough? Will it not be enough? And all that. They're able to know all that because you have a metric. You have a metrics that is helping you as you progress to give information that helps you to be able to give that report, so to say, to the stakeholders. They also will be able to put it in your report also for your stakeholders to be able to see things. And then it helps with the growth and the improvement. Now, like I said earlier on, by the time you use your charts during your retrospective meeting, it helps you to grow. It helps the team to grow. You know the areas where you're lagging behind. You're able to put improvement plan in place, and you continually put improvement plan in place. And once you are putting improvement plan in place and you are actually actioning those improvement plans, then the team is growing, and that brings about satisfaction for the team. Your performance level, increases. We've talked about the retro meeting. So these are some of the uses of the metrics, not limited to this, but these are some of the uses of your metrics. Okay, so we want to look at the types of metrics in Scrum or Agile. You have the burn down chart, which is one of the ones we'll be talking extensively tonight. You have the burn up chart literally the opposite of a burn down chart. So a burn down chart burns from the top to the bottom, but a burn up chart starts from the bottom to the top. Okay, and then we have the velocity chart. That's another one we're going to talk extensively on today. You have the cumulative flow diagram, used mainly in Kanban framework, but also can be used in Scrum, but it's much effective in Kanban. You have the capacity chart. You have the work item chart. Is a chart whereby you can look at, how many number of work items do we have in the sprint? Who are they assigned to? What is the state, of those work items? You're able to do that on your dashboard. You also have the sprint overview chart. You have the code chart used by both the developers and the testers. You have the pipeline chart. used again by the developers and the testers, and then the test plan chart used also by the tester. So the tester can use the test plan report to be able to say talk about the number of tests that they've run during a particular sprint, how many of them passed, how many failed, and all that. They're able to do that using the test plan chart, but it's test plan report. They're able to do that also. But like I said, the tool we're focusing on, which really helps you as a team, is the sprint burn down chart, because it talks about gives information about your sprint, and then the velocity chart, which helps each sprint that you go into, and then able to talk the velocity chart able to talk about the pace at which a team is progressing while they're working. So those are some of the charts that you have. Okay, so we're going to start with the burn down charts. Like the name, depicts, it's a visual representation that shows a work progress of a team in a particular sprint. It displays, what has been completed, what is remaining, and the timeline that you have left, to do what needs to be done. That is your burn down chart. Okay, and like I said, like the name says, so if you look at the chart over here, you can see that this is what's this thing. This is everything they've committed to do. And in as much as they are completing work, you can see it keeps going down, it keeps going down, it keeps going down, and then until they've completed what they need to do. And the timeline is always, at the bottom over here. So it burns down. It looks at how the team are burning the work they have to do down, how they are completing what needs to be done. So what do we use the burn down chart for? We use it to track at the actual work that has been completed. So like I said, it is what is completed that you can see going down. So if work is not completed, let's assume that this team started here and they didn't complete anything, you will see this chart just being straight at the top over here, going straight like this. But because they're actually burning down, that's where you can see the line. So the white line over here is the burn down line, because this is just kind of a clip art one. By the time we get to the real one, I'll be able to explain what the component on it is for you. And then it tracks the actual work that is remaining. So let's assume we have a 2 weeks, and by the middle of the week, we've not done much. And then it gives you, okay, when we see the components, you'll see it gives you a percentage of what has been done. So by the time maybe we're in the middle of the sprint and it's showing you 2%. So you as a Scrum Master, you're able to use that to motivate the team to say, oh, we're 1 week gone, we're 5 days gone, into this sprint, and we've just done 2%. You're looking at the number of people you have in your team, and you're using that to say, oh, team, what is going on? Is anybody having a block? Is there anybody having a blocker? Is there any impediment that is not making the work to move? Because there definitely has to be a reason why the work is not going down the way it should go down. And then you're able to see that, because one thing is there are times when on the board itself, you can see a work item or a task on the sprint board being in a particular place for a while. Your chart gives you quick information more than you going on the board and thinking, oh, when was the last time this person moved oh, he said he's going to finish it, he didn't finish it. Or when anything is added to the sprint, your chart gives you quick information about all those information. So the best person that interprets and reads the chart better than anyone is you, the Scrum Master, because like I said, you can use it to motivate your team. You can use it also to know what is going on during the sprint if work is not going down the way it should go. So and another reason is to know whether the team can achieve the sprint goal within the timeline. So like for the example that I used, that you're in the middle of the sprint and it's just 2% of things that has been gone, and you still have 98 percent of work to do at the middle of the sprint. That tells you as a Scrum Master that really can we achieve the sprint goal. So the timeline we have in place and all that, you'll be able to look at that at stand up. You'll be able to discuss, because that's what your stand up is really all about, planning daily. Okay, so where are we? Where are we? what is the focus right now? Are we focusing on the sprint goal? Is it possible that why we have just 2% done is because team members are doing other things rather than doing the work that we've committed into sprints? You'll be able, with the information you're getting from your chart, you'll be able to look at all those and then know what you need to do further. Okay, so quickly we go to the once we finish about the burn down chart, I'll take the question. I know somebody just raised the hand, but once we finish about the burn down chart, before I go to the velocity chart, we will ask questions. So what are the benefits of a burn down chart? It is very easy to read. I will explain the components to you in a few minutes. It's very easy for you to read. By the time you know the components, you know what each component are saying, you're able to read it. It gives you information because it's real life, it's real time, not real life, it's real time. Whatever is done on the board is what the chart reflects. Okay, so it's not something that you set up on Monday and the way you left it on Monday is the way it's going to be throughout. So it's real time. Like I said, once the data on the board is being moved or shipped anywhere, it is reflecting on your chart also. Okay, and whatever you didn't put in also at the start of your sprint, don't expect to see it in the chart because, like I said, it's real time. So it follows whatever goes on the board. So it's very easy to read. You can use it, to motivate your team members, like I said, for them to focus and to perform. There's every possibility that, team members are helping other teams out, or an external team is calling them to come and support them, help them to do one thing or the other, and then they're not focusing on what they need to do. The chart can help them, motivate them and focus them back, keep them on track on what needs to be done. Also, you can use it to maintain effective collaboration among the team members. Okay, so when we're looking at things, if there's any impediments and all that, if that is why work is not moving, team members are able to come together to say, oh, what is that problem issue you are having? You can find somebody who is more experienced saying that, oh, just let's meet after the stand-up, I'll put you through what you need to do and all that. So it fosters collaborative efforts within the team members themselves. And then it also helps to know whether the deadline, like I said, can be achieved or not. It gives a projection. So I'm just going to talk about the components, and that will help you to understand better what we're talking about, the benefits and the uses of the burn down chart. Okay. So at the top over here, you can see the name. So for this particular chart is a release burn down chart. Okay, so it's not a sprint burn down chart, it's a release burn down chart. And a release burn down chart is a chart that has a couple of sprints in it. So let's assume for a particular product or software, there is, we intend to release maybe the MVP, which means the minimum viable product. We want to release maybe the payment gateway feature of a particular software or website. We want to release it in the next 3 months. So how many sprints you have in that 3 months? And at the end of that release, this is a chart that you come to. And that's why at the bottom here, you can see that it's picking up the sprint rather than the dates. But the one we will be doing for the sprint will be picking all the days of the sprints, not like a release plan, but just using these to show us the components. So the same component is what you will have on any burn down chart. Okay, so at the top there, it gives you an opportunity to put the name of that particular chart in it. And you can see here, it has release burn down. So for your own sprints, you can have sprint 1 burn down chart, sprint 2 burn down chart, depending on what you want to call it. Some use SP1 charts, some depending, but that's the name of the charts that you put there. Okay, and then you can see the period at the bottom. So the period that this chart is talking about, you will see it at the bottom there. Okay, and that's why we have the date range. That's the date range telling us the period. You have the average burn down. So another thing the chart does is it calculates an average burn down. And what it's looking at is at this particular sprint, at this particular sprint, this team were averagely burning 32 story points, averagely. So that's what that chart is telling us. Okay, because and it's a story point chart. So you can have a story points chart, you can have a user story chart. And where I've picked that up on this chart, if you look at it, is at the top here. So over here, you can see it says story point. So whoever has generated this, they've generated it to know the story point, to have a visual representation of the story points rather than the user story. So it's the 164 you have here is the main metric, as you can see up there. So he's telling us what is remaining. Okay, so over here he's saying that they've done 97% of what needs to be done, but what is still remaining for them to burn down is 164 story points still need to be burned down. And then it gives you also any items that are not itemized, any item that there's no effort on it, it will also give you that information. So over here for the now couple of sprints that have been done, it's saying that six work items were not itemized. You can see that here. So it gives you that information also. Okay. So if as a scrum master, let's assume that we finish sprint planning, the second on the third day, somebody has added something onto the board that we didn't know about, and the person didn't itemize the thing and all that. By the time you come here, it will give you the information of what has items that have not been itemized. And then you can go on the board and check, okay, so let me look at it. What story have not been itemized there? You will see it. You will know when it comes in, and then you can ask, and then you will know who added it also to the board. There's a place where you know all that, which hopefully if we get to the workshop aspect of things, I'll be able to show you so that you know who is doing what on the project and all that. So that gives you that information. You have that information also over here. And then over here, you see the total scope increase. What this means is that a total of 26 story points have been added to the board. Okay, so let's go to the bars to see. So when this team started, they started with 400 story points. You see, original scope. That's the original scope they started with. They had a burn down between, let's say, 350. By this other sprint, they had 350 down. By the time it came here, it's like about, let's say that's 280 over here. But then it increased again. So from 280, it went up to it'd be like 100 or more than that over here. You can see that here. So that tells you that, okay, so this is where this increase, part of where this increase is coming from. Again, you can see that it went up, it went down here, it went down a bit here, and then it came up again over here. So for every time it comes up, it's adding up, it's telling you the total number of increase that happened during that sprint. It gives you that information also by itself. And then the yellow line you're seeing at the top here depicts your total scope. So the total scope for this particular chart is 400 story points. That's the total scope. And then the gray line, this gray line going down on the top of the bars, that is the burn down. And the blue bars are just the story points, the work items, the story points that we're burning down. Okay, that gray one is the burn down line. Okay, and at the bottom, like I said, you always have the date here, and then you always have count of story points or count of work items, depending on what it is over here, and then the percentage is always there also. You have the percentage there. Another good thing about your project, you know, what I was talking about the benefit of the uses, I said it gives you what has been completed, and you're looking at what is remaining, and you also be able to know if we can complete things or not. And that is what the projected completion information gives you. So this chart had looked at the way this team is working every sprint, and it has given a projection. Okay, that at the rate at which they're going, they'll be able to finish this by the 10th of January 2018, because normally Azure is an American product, so normally their numbers, their dates are always in the American version. Okay, but in brackets, you see, he said by one more iteration, they should be able to finish. So he's saying that by one more sprint, this project or the number of work items, this story point will be completed. It's a projection. So if come tomorrow, nothing gets burned down in this particular sprint, this projection can change. But it's just been looking at the way they are working and looking at the average story point that they are burning down, and that's why it's giving that projection. Okay, so he's able to give that also, and you're looking at that as Scrum Master, and those are part of the things that will motivate your team. So and this particular team now looking at, oh, the release has been planned for this particular time, to say that we have 5 more sprints to go. but the chart is saying by the chart's projected completion date, you have just one more iteration to go. So this particular team still has a capacity of maybe 4 sprints to bring in, if they want to bring in more things, if they want to do technical depth, if they want to do maybe regression test or anything to what has been done before the release, they have enough time to be able to do that. Okay, so that is what this chart is talking about in a nutshell. So you see, if you understand the components on it, you're able to give information to your team using this chart. You're able to know what is going on with your team once you know the components, and you're able to interpret the components very well. Okay, so before we go to the next one, which I think is velocity, let me see if it's velocity chart. I'll come back to this one. Okay, these are types of charts. Okay, so let's just do the type of chart. Okay, so like I said, the one we looked at before, this is a release burn down. Okay, so let's look at a proper sprint burn down chart. So on the left over here, my left, you'll have the efforts and efforts burn down chart. So it's just like the story point burn down one that we saw in the release burn down chart. You can see the name of the sprint there is a sprint 15 efforts burn down. You can see the date period over there. It says it's 95% completed. The color in green shows you're completed, and you can see the keynotes there. The color in green shows you're completed, and the color in blue shows what is remaining. So at the end of this particular sprint, you can see that they have a little bit of work remaining, and you can see the projected completion. It says they have 2 more days to go to finish what they needed to do. Unfortunately, that particular sprint has ended, and your sprint is fixed. So there is no way we can say, oh, because it says we need 2 more days, let's just extend the sprint 2 more days. It's completed. So whatever is not completed here goes back into your backlog, and then you discuss if it's priority, it gets carried over into the next sprint that you're going into with your PO. You have that discussion. You can see that in this particular chart also, the average burn down per story point is 1. Okay, so this team was burning down an average of 1 story point. So you can see that when they started, for 3 days it was flat, nothing was burning down 3 days, and then it went down the 4th day. They completed work, it went down again, nothing was burning down for 4 days. Does that tell you then that your team members are not working? No, they might be working. It might be that there is a bug. Remember that it is the story that gets to done, that gets to closed column, that your chart picks as completed. So if a developer has completed his own aspect on a particular story, if the testers are still working on it, if the testers have completed, but the BA or the PO has not done the UAT on it, it won't turn green, even though, and that's for a work item, okay? That's for a user story. Now, if we generate a task burn down, once the developer completes our own task and takes it to done, if the burn down starts, because it depends on, like I said, what you've generated. So you can generate an effort, which is a story point burn down chart. You can generate a user story burn down chart. You can generate a task burn down chart. You can generate a bug burn down chart, depending on what story or what report you want to give using that chart, or what you want to, information you want to pass to your team members using that chart. So this is an efforts burn down chart. And then the next one here is a user story, which is the same thing as your product backlog item burn down chart. Okay, and you can see that even though it is for the same sprint, you can see different informations on them. So it's for the same sprint, but it's generated using different information, and you can see that the graph itself, the chart itself, they are different, even though it's for the same sprint 15. Okay, and then we can see here that they completed 90% of work that needed to be done. The average burn down when it comes to the user story is 0.4. Okay, and then the projected completion says when it comes to the story that needs to be completed, it says the projection is that it's going to take the team how many more days? 6 days. Whereas here it looks at the story point or the effort, and it says it's going to take them 2 more days to complete. But when it comes to the user story itself, it's saying that it's going to take them 6 months because it's looked at the way at which they're working to give that projection going forward. And then over here also quickly, you can see that the effort increase, we had 2. Total scope increase for the effort is 2, while the total scope increase here is 10. Okay, so all these are all the information. So there are 2 charts talking about the same sprint, but looking at different things have been highlighted on them, and you can see that the graphs that are on them are different. They're not the same. The percentage also is not the same. The projection is not the same. So you can generate them and put them on your dashboard, but you just need to indicate what it is. So you can see this one is sprint 15 PBI burn down, and this one is sprint 15 effort burn down, saying different things, but talking about the same sprint. Okay. And then, like I said earlier on, I said you can create a task burn down chart, you can create a bug burn down chart, and you can see those ones here. So we over here we picked the sprint 15 again, still looking at the sprint 15 again. Okay, and then we can see that 82% of the tasks were completed. The average burn down is minus 0.1. Okay, so when it's positive is when the team is doing well. Once it goes to minus, then that means they are really not too putting their weight, and you can see that in the graph itself. This is task. This is not even a user story, and it's taking the task about 3 days for a task to be completed. A task is something that a team should be able to do at least within a day or 2. Okay, now let me say a day, within a day or 2, if there are no complications disturbing anything. And then you can just see that we have a lot of flats on top of what needed to be done, and that's why it's gone to minus 0.1. Okay, based on the movement on the chart is how your average burn down is calculated. And then also over here, you can look at it. It says the total scope increase is 25. And why you have a total scope increase of 25 is because the team, not all the developers created their task at the start of sprint. So some were creating as they were going along, not at the start of sprint. So it makes the charts look a bit not too good, so if I'll say. And that's why we encourage Scrum Masters to encourage the team members to create their task at the start of sprint. No, oh, when it's my turn to work, I will do it. So this might be the developer has created their own, and then the testers are creating as they go along, or even the developer themselves creating as they go along on the story. But if everything has been created at the start of sprint, they've put their estimated hours on it and all that, they will have everything at the start, and they will see everything burning down as it goes. But at least you can see what the chart is saying, and it's saying that at the end of this particular sprint, there are still 6 tasks remaining to go. Now, this won't give you a projected completion date and all that, because your sprint, your task doesn't have a timeline. What has your timeline on it is your story, user story, because that's the one that goes into your sprint. Okay, and then you can see the bug burn down chart here. So at the start of the sprint, there were no bugs. So the bugs were raised during the sprint, maybe when the testing started. Okay, that's when the bugs were being raised, and then you can see that when it was raised, they were completed, and then at the end of, okay, so this is another sprint. This is sprint 14. So I didn't get a chart for sprint 15 because there were no bugs during the sprint, so I had to go to the previous one to get this one, but it's still talking about the same team. Okay, and then in sprint 14, you can see that all the bugs that were raised during that sprint were fixed, retested, and closed up. And that's why we can see green all through at the end of the particular sprint, and we can see an 100% completion to the bug at the end of that sprint. So it could be something that you can use to motivate the team to say, well done team, or the defects or the bugs that were raised during the sprint, we fixed everything, we retested everything, and we closed everything before the end of sprint. Okay, so that is a bug burn down chart. Okay, before we go to velocity, any question so far on anything that we've touched on? Do we have anyone with any question? before we go to the velocity chart. No one? Okay, good. All right, so we go to the velocity chart now. So what is your velocity chart? It's again a visual representation that looks at, it displays the team's planned work and the actual work that was completed over a period of time. Okay, so like you can see in the cartoon or clip charts that is there, your velocity chart just helps to measure the pace of the team. What is the pace of the team? So if the team that planned work and they complete everything they planned during the stream, it helps you to know the rhythm, if I can put it that way, of a particular team. That is what your velocity chart, and you can use your velocity chart to kind of guide you, to how a team can work. It's the one that you can use to forecast what can be done in subsequent sprints, how you can use it to guide what needs to be done in subsequent sprints. Okay, so your velocity chart does two things. It shows you what is planned. I'm going to just use what we have in this. So this light green one is what has been planned, and then this green one is what has been completed. Okay, so for this particular team, you can see they were improving once they start. So this is for a sprint. You can see they committed to that. They didn't finish much. You would expect that going into the next sprint, they will use this first sprint to guide themselves, to say, if we committed to this and we didn't even complete up to that, then the next sprint they should reduce what they need to do. Now there are a lot of factors that comes into your velocity chart. So for you to use your velocity chart, is good to use it, let it guide you, but also you need to know the capacity of your team when you're using it. So it could be possible that at this particular first sprint, we didn't have all the team members, and that was why we didn't put much in and we didn't complete much. And then it's possible that at this particular time you'll be wondering, okay, so why did they put in more when even over here they didn't do much? It could be that at this particular sprint they had all the team members in, they have full capacity, because you can see that they completed much more than what they did at the first one. And then over here again, things went down a bit. They didn't do as much as they should, and then they took things up, and then they took it up. So looking at this velocity chart, the team has not kind of mastered their rhythm yet, because if they had, things should be, so they're not using their average velocity to guide themselves to work. They're just taking in work, maybe based on they feel, oh, we can do this and all that. But the velocity chart is there for a reason. And when we get to some samples on the board, I'll show you how you can use it, to guide yourself, to guide your team, to help your team to know where their reading is at a particular time, until they get to that place where they have a sustainable pace, a sustainable reading, and then they can choose to increase better, because they've gotten to a particular sustainable rhythm or pace, so to say. Okay, so it only calculates stories that are 100% completed. Okay, that's what your velocity chart does. So if we have a particular um story, if you're in a particular sprint and we have a story that, like I said earlier on, the developers had worked on it, the Giway had worked on it, but the UAT is not completed, it's not in the closed column, then some of the stories won't go to this red. It will remain on blue. It won't go to the red because things have not completed. And like I said, it only gives you velocity, your average velocity, based on what is completed. Not what is, some are completed, some are not completed, and everything. That's what your velocity chart does. And then what do we use it for? Like I said, you use it to measure a team's completed work against what is planned. This is what we planned. This is what we've completed. Why do we have that? For a team to be able to, discuss during your retrospective, why do we have that? Is it that we took too much in and that was why we couldn't complete it? Is it possible that we took the right amount in and then we had emergency during the sprint? Some team members were falling sick and all that, and that was why we couldn't complete what we needed to do. If we have such things happening in future, what do we need to do? That is how they discuss, and they have a plan in place to take forward in case such a thing happens, so that they are prepared. It might be that, oh, the work for those people, will look at what is priority in the work for those people, and the work that the people that are on ground are working on. We take out low priority things and we just focus on the prioritized one, finish those ones, or depends the different ways depending on what exactly the team is going through and how they want to plan going forward. It also measures a team's performance to scope increase. Okay, so there might be possibility that, okay, so we don't have that on this chart, but there are times when you planned at a particular level and then you can see what was completed higher than what was planned. That tells you that there were some things added into the sprint. So those are scope creep. So there's every possibility that yes, the team completed things. They might have completed it being overwhelmed. They might have completed it being um under pressure, because a lot of things were brought in into sprint, even though they were still able to complete it. It could be that somebody worked faster, or you had some people who completed what they needed to do on time. They had the capacity to still take in more work. Is it that we didn't take enough in? That's why we're able to complete what we planned and still had the opportunity to bring more in and then to complete that. And now what that helps that team to know is that, okay, so this work that we took in at this, that we planned for at this particular sprint, that means we can achieve it within 2 weeks and still be able to do more. So when we're going to the next sprint, we're looking at, can we take more in this time around, knowing what what we took in the other time, and we're able to do more than that, again still based on the capacity. So there is no way you can plan to take more or less in without having your capacity in place, because you need that available resources that would be doing the work. Okay, so it tracks a team's workflow and the pace over a period of time. So by the time you have a few sprints and all that, your velocity chart will generate what is called an average velocity. And what it tells the team is guiding them to say, averagely, this is either the number of user stories that you should take in, or averagely, this is the number of story points that you can work on as a team. Again, I would say put into consideration as a scrum master, before you advise them to use the average velocity, what is the capacity during those sprints. So let's assume you've had 3 sprints. So okay, let's assume that you have you've done 3 sprints with full team's capacity. Okay, then it gives you an average of 50. You know that, okay, so that means that when our team members are full, we can definitely work on 50 story points. Or for a user story, it's showing you 15 at the end of 3 sprints that you've had, when you know that, oh, all the members were full during the sprint. Okay, so and then we're going into the next sprint and half of the team members are not in. Definitely, you're not going to take 50 in. You're not going to take 50 story points in because half of the team members are not in. You're not going to take 15 stories in because half of the team members are not in. So you won't say blindly that, oh, but the average velocity says we should take 50, or the average velocity says we should take 15 stories in. You won't say that because you know you don't have capacity to do 15 going forward. So these are some of the things that you need to note as a Scrum Master, because you're the one using this metric to guide the team, to support the team. They are experts in their own field, which is to develop, which is to test and all that, your own specialty, your own area. And that is why you are the Scrum Master. The master of the Scrum process is to use this thing to guide them, to say, oh, this is what this is telling us. Let us use it, going forward, and things like that. So you're able to use that also to do that. So it also, like I said, it helps them to track, their workflow and their pace, and then to measure how long it will take a team also to complete a project. Your velocity chart also will help you to do that, because you're looking at things and you're saying, okay, so we're supposed to do this over maybe 10 sprints and all that. We have 5 sprints gone, and at the rate at which we're working, our pace at the rate at which we're working, we might not be able to complete it. We might be able to complete it. That chart also, you're able to get that prediction also from that chart. Okay, so let's look at some of the benefits of using the velocity chart. Again, it's easy to read. Like I said, once you know the component and what the component is telling you, once you're able to observe it for a few sprints and all that, you understand what it's saying, you understand what it's showing you. very, very easy to read. And as a Scrum Master, you're even going to coach your team members to be able to read the chart. You want to encourage them to go on the dashboard to see what the metrics are saying, because you know it's going to motivate them. So it's a thing that during your retro you want to put on the whiteboard before you even go into the retro, start the retro, say, hey, can I have 5 minutes of your time? This is what our chart said. Use it to motivate them. This is how we've worked. Don't worry, we can improve things. You motivate them, but you've put that subconsciousness in their minds. A lot of them might not even know there's a dashboard somewhere. But when you take them onto it and you show them and everything, they'll say, oh, how did you get there? You show them how they get there. They can also go there themselves, and check things out. How are we doing? What is it showing us? And then you can see some of them saying that if maybe by the time you're going into a sprint, they will say, oh, let's follow our average velocity, because I think I went there and the average velocity is saying this and that. They are also backing you as a Scrum Master when you negotiate to reduce story point that has been taken, or number of stories that has been taken into it. When you're negotiating that with the product owner during your maybe sprint planning, if your product owner is there, they are backing you up also, because you've taught them how to look at that and how to use that to gauge what goes in. And they are the ones that did the work during the sprint. They're the ones that went through the experience. So they understand what you're saying and they're able to back you up to say, okay, technically we're the ones that are working and this and that and everything. And then that, not that it puts pressure on the PO. POs don't like dropping work. POs concentrate more on they are the intermediary between the business and the team, but they tend more towards the business. They are the business people, okay? Is the product owner. So it just wants you, the technical people, to do what needs to be done and all that. But you are the Scrum Master. You protect the Scrum team. You protect the development team. You protect them from distraction. You protect them from anything that can overwhelm them. And you start that, do that negotiation with the with the PO himself. Okay. So some of the benefit, like I said, is easy to read. It helps the team to improve their performance. Is a chart we look at, and when, like I said, when we get to retro, we want to improve how we're doing things. It helps the team to forecast also the number of stories that can be delivered in future sprint. That is using the average velocity to do that. It helps the team also to know the effort they can commit to in future sprints. Still the average velocity, looking at that for them, help the team to negotiate scope increase during the sprint. So the product owner comes during the sprint. We already have the 50 that our chart is telling us we can do. And the product owner comes and say, oh, you people need to add these also. The stakeholder wants this done. You people need to add this. And that thing that is being brought is, let's assume, has 13 story point. That particular requirement has 13 story points on it. Now, you know that if you add that to your 50, it's going to be 63. And you know that, okay, we have full capacity. Normally, our average velocity should be 50. Shouldn't be more than 50. But now the PO is coming with a 13 and everything. So that is where the negotiation comes in to say, if we take this 13 in, first and foremost, does this 13 take priority over every other thing that is in the sprint? Oh, yes, it takes priority, so we need to do it. So if we're taking that in, then we need to take a 13 out so that we still remain within average velocity. We still remain within the yardstick or the catch of what we can do during a sprint conveniently, do during the sprint. So that negotiation has to come there over that. Okay, so you can use your metric. So because if you don't have a velocity chart that tells you, guides you on what your average velocity is, there's every possibility that the PO will bring it, says it's important. You take it with all the things that are inside in the sprint, and then you're able to deliver that one that was brought in at the detriment of other things that you've planned at the start of sprint to do. So as a Scrum Master, also look at when the story comes in. Okay, so I know that Agile says we can bring things in. You're adaptable. There's agility, yes, but you also have to kind of plan things also. So a 13-point story coming 2 days to the end of sprint. Come on, let's be realistic. It's not gonna be done. It's even if everybody puts down what they are doing, all of them can't work on that story at the same time. It could only take maybe 2 or 3 people focusing on it to do it. And there's every possibility, because it's a big one, it's a 13 is a big one, it won't be completed at the end of that sprint. So you want to tell your product owner that, okay, because it's important, because it's priority over other things, it's critical, we will start it. And then you as a scrum master, talk to your technical people, your developers, tell them to have a look at that story, tell them to digress it. Do you think realistically we can complete it? They will tell you they can't complete it. And then you, as the person shielding the team, have to go and make it the PO to say that the guys have looked at this, it's not possible. We will give it a go, we will start, but we're not promising that we're going to complete it. Now it's left for the PO to go and say that to the stakeholders. There are times when the PO feels, oh, this is what the stakeholders want. You can tell the PO that, oh, I don't mind taking the tech lead. Let's have a meeting with the stakeholder, because it's better to prepare your stakeholders, yeah, to say that we will start, but we're not promising that we can finish it, but we'll give it a start. It's better for them to know that, to have that information. Now, for us to promise, oh, yeah, we can do it. And at the end of the sprint, we can deliver it. And then the query will come. Why did you say? Because we don't know what they've gone to tell their own customer. Do you understand? Based on the information we've told them that, oh, yeah, yes, we'll do it. We don't know what marketing strategy they've put in place, and we don't want to disappoint them. So it's better to be realistic with them and tell them that we will give it a start. We're not promising we can do it. And if the guys know a timeline of when they can complete that, they can tell them that maybe we might be able to finish it the first week of next sprint, but at least we will give it a start. So they know roughly a timeline of when it might be completed. And even if we meet with any complication, it's better to keep giving them information. Always carry them along. That is the collaboration that is between the business and the development team that needs to happen. That agile, which is one of agile's principles. Okay. So we have that for the benefit. And then the chart itself, like I said, there are some things we need to consider when we're using the velocity chart. And one of it is that, like I said, you can only use information on your chart, on your velocity chart, to forecast when your team's composition remains constant. Now, what that means is, I said earlier on that if you have 3 sprints where your team members are full, at the end of that 3rd sprint, whatever average velocity it gives you, as a scrum master, just notice it that means when I have full team members, this is the average velocity that we would have. So when you know that okay, for example, the 50 we're using at full capacity, we can only do 50. So you know that, okay, full capacity will do 50, 55 or thereabouts. Yeah, it's better to take it down than to take it up. So even if it gives you 50, it's better to take a 45 in, yeah, with the hope that you're giving a 5 buffer in case there's any emergency during the sprint. Okay, you can do that. And then by the time you're now you've not gone into the sprint and there's any emergency, you already have a five story point buffer that you can play with, because you've had that in place going forward. Okay. And then somebody's camera is on. Please, if you can turn off your camera, please. Thank you. And another thing you need to consider when using your velocity chart to give information is you can only use your PBI or your effort for your velocity chart. You can't use your task, because for the task, remember, you didn't story point your task. Number one, tasks are in various sizes. You can have a task that is just a couple of minutes to do. Somebody else can have a chart that is going to take, a task that is going to take a day or thereabouts to do. So you can't use your velocity chart for tasks or for bugs. You can only use it for your user stories, and then also for your story points or your efforts. That's what you can use it for. And the last one is your work is considered planned when it is committed to the sprint at your sprint start date. So the light green bar that we see will only show on your chart if you commit, if you move all your stories to committed and you move them into sprints on the day of your sprint planning. So let's assume you finish your sprint planning, and as a scrum master, you're thinking, oh, I'll just do the budget tomorrow. There are other things I need to do. I'll do the budget tomorrow. You won't find that planned bar once it's past your sprint start date. So you need to be aware of that. You need to consider that also in whatever you're doing. Okay. Right, so this is an example of a velocity chart. Okay, so the blue one, as you can see, is the planned one, as you can see in the key at the bottom. The dark green one is completed, and then the light green one is completed late. So if there is any work that was completed a day after your sprint, is considered as completed late. So it will still add it to things for you, but it's considered is considered completed late. And you can see that this particular thing, this is a chart for a time frame of 8 sprints. You can see that there. Last 8 sprints is a commerce velocity. You can see that. And this also talks about, again, this is a story point velocity. You can see it there, story points per sprint. And then you can see that is the average velocity that I'm talking about. So he's looked at this team and is giving them an average velocity that at the rate at which you're working, averagely, the story point you should be taking into a sprint is 39 story points. Now, in this team, you might have a lot of people there, and you're wondering, why would we just be taking in 39 when we have a lot of people? It's looked at the way that they've worked over, like I said, a couple of sprints, and that's why it's giving them that number. And you can see that they most times complete what they needed to do late. Okay, so over here is like the one I was saying that you planned. You can see that the completed is longer, is higher than the planned. So that means there were stories that came in during that sprint, even though they were completed late. That is the only part of things that were completed on time. The other things were completed late. There's nothing wrong, there's nothing bad in completing work late. And the way at which this team also are completing work late shows kind of shows me a team that rushes to finish what they needed to do at almost the end of the sprint, either the second or the last day of sprint. That's when they are rushing to do what they needed to do. Okay, that is another information that you can get, and that's why it's giving them that low number, that they can only, the average velocity is 39. That is what they can do based on the way it has calculated what they've been doing for 8 sprints. Okay. Right. So there are other ones also that I would show you. Okay, so this is an effort velocity chart. Okay, so this team, you can see that what they at this particular sprint, what they planned was what they completed. They completed everything they planned. Over here, they went over ambitious. If I can say that, you can see how long their planned is, and everything they completed in that particular sprint, they completed late. Yeah, and then that is another time where they brought things down a bit. They were able to complete everything. They did some on time, they did some late. So they increased things also a bit again. They were able also to complete everything on time that they've put into. So they were, if you look at it, they were improving as they were going. So this was good. They had a bad call during the sprints. They brought things down a bit, and then they increased this a bit, and they were able to, so they were getting sustained as they were going. Okay, and then you can see that he's telling them that the average effort they should take in is 9, which really is not too good, but he's giving them an average effort that they should, and if they use that to guide themselves, it can only get better for them. So it's, at times, most times, if you're sticking to the rules of using a velocity chart, is better, and it's good to use your average velocity to guide yourself going forward. And this is a user story one. Okay, this is a user story. Please bear with me. Let me remove that so you can see. So this is a user story burn down chart. This is the effort one. This is a user story one. And then you can see also over here that this is kind of being over ambitious, but it's their first one. It's not the first one because this is sprint 8. So again, too high, and then you can see what was completed. They brought it down, which is good, but still didn't complete as much as they've taken in. They took it up again here. They completed quite well, but still not good enough. So one can call this kind of an erratic um, velocity chart that the team needs to improve on going forward. At a particular sprint, they need to bring things down, but if they again follow their velocity chart based on those factors, they would be able to gradually get to their rhythm as a team and being able to sustain it. Okay, so that is for effort velocity chart, and that's your PBI velocity chart. So before we go to the location and also try to generate based on our time, do we have any questions so far on your on your velocity chart or your burn down chart before we go further? No question? Good. Okay, so the location of your chart. Okay, so there are 3 places on your board that you can find your chart on. So on your dashboard, definitely you can have multiple charts on your dashboard. You can have your burn down chart, you can have your velocity chart, you can open different types of burn down charts just to see what it is and what they are on your dashboard. You can have that. On your backlog, you can have that is your main board, which is your main backlog. You can get your velocity chart on your backlog, and we will see that if we go on a board just for us to see a bit of that. And then you will find it on the header where you have the analytics. So when you click on the analytics, you'll be able to see your velocity chart on your backlog. Now on your sprint backlog, what you will get there is your sprint burn down chart again under analytics. That's where you will find it. Okay, so what is the source of your chart? They are the widgets that are added to your dashboard or can be installed from the marketplace. If they're not on your dashboard already, you can install them from the marketplace extension of your project board supplier, which is either Azure DevOps or other projects. You have Jira and all that, which is a product for Atlassian. So you can get that also on their own marketplace. Okay, so that is us done. If we still don't have any question, I'll stop sharing and then we would go on the Azure DevOps board so that some of those things we've talked about, we'll be able to see real example. So it won't just be slides showing us things. We can see it also on our project board. But I would definitely love one person to share and then talk the person through rather than me sharing my screen, because that's the best way for us to learn if we just do a mini workshop at the end of the session. So I'm not sure if we have any question before I stop sharing and then we'll go on the Azure DevOps. Any question? Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing. Thank you. If you can stop recording, Abimbola, and then we can do another recording for the workshop so that this one is not too long.